Okay, so I'm probably splitting hairs that I separated out observations from interview questions, but it's how I decided to do this training. Uh, Things that you can observe that maybe aren't told to you is a very, very important aspect of doing a good assessment. And also things you can observe save you asking lots and lots of questions. And you can observe while you're at the farm what is so important to the farmer. We're still in the AT assessment part of the cycle. We're still in the step one, gathering information. What percentage of importance is this gathering information of the whole process? It might be 80% of it. It's just so important. That's why we're talking so much about it. Some academic can argue with me about the percentage, but it's just so critical. The observations during the farm assessment are probably the most enjoyable part of my job. And the observations are something that everybody can do. Once again, you don't have to be an ATP to make observations of people working in a farm environment. Once again, throughout the observations, you're listening. I will say that this point towards the bottom of the unrealistic expectations is maybe the most critical part of the observations assessment, is that we have really big hopes and dreams. And what someone will tell me on the phone or in a conversation will look really, really different when we see them in action. And so that's important. So we have to see it as much as possible. Go and watch. Watch how the farmer and the team interacts with each other. We'll learn a lot from this. And what people will say about their family, coworkers, spouse might look a lot different when we see how they are interacting. And on the phone, when the farmer is really excited about everything that he can do, and I show up at the farm and the caregiver's sitting across the room in her pajamas, yelling insults as the farmer's telling me what he wants to do, that's communicating something to me.
When you say caregiver, are you thinking like a spouse or a hired people that come in and
It-
help, a relative?
It could be all of those. Quite often it's a spouse, but I think that as Song Hee was talking about, like that interdependence model, it's sort of like everybody starts playing a role.
Son farming with a dad.
Sometimes it's a son farming with a dad, a daughter farming with a dad. Did you know you were being observed, Sam? Like, oh man. Like, oh man, this is what you were doing out there. You're gonna go back and report on. Do you know what he was writing down about me? You wanna see my notes? It's all from a place of, I forget if it was on the last section or this one. We're not just researchers, we're not interrogators. We care about the people, like you said, Darren, yesterday, that motivates us, that we're just trying to understand, to provide good services the first time as much as we can. And so, Samantha, I hope that if you would go and look at my notes, that that's what you would see. So that's our goal that we work towards. So we're just looking for all the pieces of this puzzle. Medical prognosis, is it getting better or worse? This is where the sessions from yesterday become very important. Is this a progressive condition or is it fairly stable? What are the income needs? Okay. I have a client that was telling me all the things he was doing and what he needed assistive technology for, and he was doing it because he needed the money. And I said, have you ever kept books on your business? No. I've done small farming enough to know he's spending way more than he's getting back. And he became angry at me. And I helped him set up a time with a farm financial specialist from his area, from MSU Extension. He became angry and refused to do that. But for me to recommend assistive technology for him to keep doing something that's costing him money when he needs income, I don't know what to do with that. Is it okay for me to stand here and say I'm an ATP and I don't know what to do with that? This was before even being a VR case. This was like my first time at the farm, doing my interview, my observations. I, mhm, yes, yes. And that's what AgrAbility has the funding to do, to go and provide these services. And when it's appropriate, we make referrals to VR to help purchase the assistive technology and to do the more in-depth assessment with all the income. If I made the referral to Deborah, it would be required. And one of our clients, actually, we did a whole lot of work with the assessment, only to find out in the financial part that he wasn't making, he was losing money year after year after year. And we talked to him, we talked to his accountant, talked with his family, and there was really no intention to change it. And so it had to be a closed case. So this other person I'm talking about, I didn't even make the referral because I could just see what was happening. It's not always apparent, but it was my observation of his operation, what he was talking about, how he was selling his produce, the prices he was selling his produce for. I just knew the bottom line. And his goal was to earn money because he needed more income. He was living on his Social Security and it wasn't making ends meet. And I wish I could help him. And I still pray that I can. I think there will be more conversations. So we're still gathering information. We're listening. On the phone call, we talked about this, that we could be making observations, not just by what people are saying, but by their demeanor, by who it is that's calling. We're making observations of them in their house. If we're sitting at the kitchen table having coffee and asking lots of questions, we're still observing how they're functioning in their environment. That's what's important about the observations. And is the farmer open to assistance or doubtful and suspicious? You can gather that probably by how the phone conversation goes, definitely on the farm with them. What are they excited about? What do they keep coming back to? That's an observation. What aspect of the farm is really important to them? And a really big observation for me with Mary's case was her attitude towards the medical professionals working with her. And I needed to take that into account. Look at that. You're going to tell me to stop keeping bees? Really passionate, really excited, like bubbling over, happy to talk about bees. And kind of strange, bubbling over, excited to talk about how bad her condition was, too. It's really interesting. But to observe that energy, very open, anything that's going to help her keep bees, she's listening. She's excited about. Worried about the failed surgeries, kind of hoping the next one is going to fix it, which it didn't. But still willing to ignore medical advice to get where she's going. Definite affection, like protection of her family. It was really beautiful to see the circle of people around her and how she fit into that. So there's some social and cultural issues that are hard to ask that we can see. And maybe when we make the observation, like Ben was saying earlier about building rapport, it can be the same way that when we observe interactions happening, to be able to bring that into the conversation and actually enhance the interview process. We can ask the right questions when we make observations there. Other observations is take care of yourself. As a person on site doing an assessment, visiting with the farmer, like Anna asked earlier about what do you do if there starts to be someone getting upset? Just pay attention to your surroundings and your safety, dogs, weapons, diseases. During COVID, I would say that all at once became something that we never thought about before, and being careful about that. Extenuating circumstances. This was a tough case that is probably going to be closed. He was a beekeeper, and his processing barn, the building that he worked in, burned, and so he had moved his equipment and got some different equipment and just sort of set up a hodgepodge way that he could bottle his honey, and it was not clean at all. Like there was evidence of lots of other things happening in that space, and I was very uncomfortable with that. And so it played into the viability role of my recommendations that even though he was making money, it kind of became an ethics question of, do I have a duty to report? Is that my job? We see some things that can make this a tough job sometimes. And like you kind of wanted to know, where's he selling this honey at? I don't think I want to get some. But I did provide him with MSU does a beautiful document every year, updating. Megan Milbrath updates this document on appropriate facilities for bottling honey. And I sent him that. I sent that to the rehab counselor. My recommendation ended up being that there needs to be plans in place, actively being moved on towards making a hygienic facility that would meet these standards before accommodating for the disability. And so he did agree. He started getting price quotes for having someone come in and build a clean room within that space. So if that happens, then we would be able to move forward. But that was an observation. He wasn't going to tell me on the phone that he was processing deer in the building where he's bottling honey. But I saw it. So confidentiality. Our farmers, by word of mouth, we've talked about this. That's how we get a lot of clients. Referrals happen by word of mouth. We provide a good service here, and the neighbor learns about it. And so we get another referral. Well, I heard you helped so and so. What's wrong with him? How do you answer that question? Who was that? So here, I've brought up this word ethics a few times, and Resna has a code of ethics. It's also a good aspect of the ATP certification. It gives us sort of standard of practice and ethics to follow. and really keeping the welfare of the people that we're serving as paramount, practicing in our area of competence. We've talked about that. And so if you're in a place where you're comfortable at the farms and making the observations, asking the interview questions, and pulling all that information together, but when it comes to the place of making a recommendation for assistive technology, maybe you're even comfortable pulling together a few ideas and sending it to the farmer and saying, here's some things to think about. That's great. But if it comes to a place of, okay, here's my recommendation, I think this is the best option for you, or lining up funding for it, and that's beyond you, stop. It's okay. Refer on to me or another assistive technology professional, someone that's in that role. And if I'm out doing an evaluation and realize there's some things going on with this person's hand, and I am not a hand therapist, I can refer to Stephanie, or I can have Kim come out. Kim could come out and help me with a wheelchair evaluation that I'm not in a place to do, or I could have Song Hee help with making recommendations for electronics and apps on a person's phone. So just stay within your area of competence and avoid conflicts of interest. And this has been an interesting one for me to navigate personally, because I used to also be an assistive technology supplier, and I was doing assistive technology evaluations. And quite often, the best thing a farmer needed was something I sold. And for quite a while, Michigan Rehab viewed it as okay, an audiologist would do an evaluation for hearing aids and then sell us the hearing aids. Ned does the evaluation for a farm and sells us the farm stuff. I've come to the place, I'm just not comfortable with that. And I think Michigan Rehab was always kind of, we'll deal with it, but not quite right. It just needed to be an ethical decision to step back and choose one role or the other. Have other suppliers take care of providing the technology. So, did you have a question, Darren? Just thinking hard about it. Okay, an observation. Who wants the assistive technology worse? The person with a disability or their family? Dad wants him in the tractor. He wants to be welding in the shop. Who are we going to accommodate for? The interdependence model says pay attention to everybody. How's the assistive technology playing a role in the midst of all of this? But the goals of the client. Maybe the client wants to mow the grass, and the dad wants him to be plowing the field. We have to navigate that. Okay, I asked the farmers to demonstrate to me. I've had to learn a lot about beekeeping. I'm not a beekeeping specialist. Adam Ingrao has taught me a lot, but Mary was talking lots and lots about going down south and splitting her hives and the work that she has to do there. I'm not going to go to a southern state where her hives are at during the winter months. And so I said, show me what you do. When you're down there, how do you split a hive? And so she demonstrated, and it helped me understand. I just needed to see the motions and the ergonomics that she's using, and we could think together. And so she showed me her bottling room, extracting her vehicle. I was able to go to the sales venue, which was really helpful to see that and observe her working there and in the apiary.
10 inch. So normally there's 9 frames in here, not
Yep.
5. So I typically start pulling out, decide.
So she's
okay,
telling
is
me
this
all about
linear?
it.
Is this brood? What is this? And
Probably a way I
then,
could hook my
let's
phone
say
up
I'm
to
gonna
the
make
speakers.
notes.
I didn't
have
think
them
about
up
that.
here
I'm
on
sorry.
the other, high.
But I think it's coming out of that. Was it coming out of that?
Can hear it.
No. We're gonna run out of time if I try to figure out how to make the sound play through. But the idea is I was able to watch her functions, her movements, and what she needed to do when she was working down south.
So did she own property there also, or did she have an agreement with other?
She had an agreement actually through the person she worked with. The man with the 5,000 hives always took care of taking her 240. I mean, what's another 240? Throw them on a truck and take them south. And the property's all set up, a place for her to stay because she was going down and helping him with his hives at the same time. And she would just go take care of her own in the evenings, etc., all of that. And it worked really great until she couldn't work with him anymore. We're getting there. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. But these are all aspects of it. And so when I was there, she wasn't in the process of pulling honey. I said, show me how you do it.
And then what do you do?
I take the bee blower, leaf blower, and I blow all the bees out.
And they come flying out the top?
Yep. And then I'm gonna take them, even though I'm not taking this.
You know what? I'm not even gonna mess with it. We got time constraints and sorry about the noise. Shouldn't have done that. Okay, safety observations. Bill, do you want to? Is Bill here? Maybe he went out. He stepped out. Okay. This can be questions of the ethics of safety and the risk of potential injury. What do we do if someone is doing a task with their disability that's really dangerous? And if we don't help them make it better, they're going to do it anyway. And it's really dangerous. And so we want to make it incrementally better, but we still don't feel like it's safe for them to do. Should we help them make it at least half again better? Or should we say, you just need to stop. I'm so uncomfortable with this, I'm not even going to get involved. I've been there sometimes where I'm trying to make a point. Like, this is so hazardous. I cannot professionally be involved. And Bill hasn't given me advice to write that on letterhead, sign it and date it, and send it to the farmer and just step back. David?
Is it hazardous because of their disability, or is it just hazardous?
Because of their disability. If it was hazardous in general, I wouldn't need to be involved to accommodate it. It's more a situation where assistive technology is needed to accomplish a task, and I would be enabling them to do something unsafe. And it's really important for us to evaluate that. This other smaller booklet that you have is a way to evaluate assistive technology for safety. I would say this applies a lot of times in terms of a farmer who has built their own assistive technology and helping them think through the safety of it to prevent secondary injuries. And the person that I put the spring-loaded step on for eventually needed a lift, was unable to climb the steps at all. She received a lift, installed it, the farm installed it, it was installed correctly. It had the standard features of a lift with a handrail to hold on to. She acquired cancer in addition to her leg amputation. She was on a lot of medications. At this point in time, I wasn't even involved with the farm anymore. It had been a successful case. She was accommodated. I don't think I even knew she had cancer. But she stood on the lift and raised herself up and realized she hadn't opened the door to the cab. And so she tried to open the door to the cab and sort of lean back sideways, and she fell off. And it broke some ribs, it did some internal injuries, and she never recovered from that. She passed away from complications of that. And so you ask questions of liability. The farm didn't sue me. They still appreciated all that had been done. That was a secondary injury. And how could that have been prevented? Training? I don't remember ever being there and saying, make sure you open the door of your tractor before you raise up, because once you're up, there's no room. And if you get up and realize the door needs opened, just lower the lift and then open the door and then go back up. Sometimes we become so familiar with assistive technology that we don't think to instruct and train and to spend the time with it because it's what we're used to. We see it on a bunch of places. And it was a lift that had come from another farm. And so there was not an AT supplier involved. It was just me. Another farm didn't need it anymore, brought it to them. They did the installation. My part, I should have spent more time doing the training because I should have played the role that an assistive technology supplier would have. So the safety is critical. And this helps basically walk through a systematic process of evaluating the safety of assistive technology on farms. Talks about electrical and wiring and different aspects of assistive technology. It's a very useful book if you're not familiar. I think there's sections on excessive vibration and toxic materials and hot surfaces, and just thinking about if a person's leg when they're riding a ATV is going to be too close to the muffler, and if you don't have sensation in your leg, the ATV is really great for mobility. We might recommend that as assistive technology, but to make sure that we consider the safety of it and put some kind of a guard to shield a person's leg from being burnt on the engine of the ATV. So safety observations, risk to coworkers, we already talked about that. Somebody mentioned that we could have put yellow tape on that movable step, could have been training with all of the other workers on the farm. There's different things that could have been done. It could have been a latching mechanism that when the person with the disability isn't going to be using it, they could have put a latch so that it wouldn't move when other people climbed on and off. Different aspects of that. And another safety observation would be to see how has the farmer, if they like to work in their shop and they're building things and doing things, are they doing it in a safe manner? Is it something that looks like they have the expertise to be building their own things? And to use farmer language, if their welds look like pigeon poop, they probably shouldn't be building their own lift to get on a tractor. But if they're building other things and it's structural, like if they're rebuilding their corn planter and changing it from an 8-row to a 12-row and it's holding together and they've been using it for years and they're skilled fabricators, those are observations that we can make at the farm. The accuracy of observations, I'm not lying to you. I'm not lying to you. I had a client that told me all these things he was doing. When I got to the farm, he kept saying, I'm not lying to you, and it was obvious he was. Because he said he had a farm in another town with 600 laying hens and a huge greenhouse that he's raising tomatoes in. And he's bringing it back and selling it. And I said, what are you using to haul it? And he pointed to this trailer that had weeds growing up through it. And I know that when you have 600 laying hens, you have to haul eggs more often than it would take for weeds to grow up through. So there was these observations, and then I said, well, where's it at? let's go look at it together. Oh, no, I'm growing stuff for pharmaceutical companies and they don't want other people on the site to see it. And well, then we got to the stage of looking at the Schedule F and the financials, and there was a 0 on the line that said produce that you have grown and sold on your own farm. And there was a big number on the line that said products sold, like purchased and resold. And I said, can you explain this? Are you growing this stuff? Or are you getting it from somewhere else? Anna, that was one where he wasn't happy with me. And I had to step back, give my professional observations to Voc Rehab, and his case was canceled. And he doesn't look at me when he walks by at the farm show anymore. He's still around, but it was kind of disappointing. I really wanted to help him, but that's importance of observations. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how you document your observations? Because I know we're really, with our case notes, we want to be partial and not subjective about this. Can you talk a little bit more about how you do that?
My observations go in my case notes quite a lot. And when I go to put them into a report, is it okay to say I'm a wordsmith? And I have lots of observations that are just getting my thoughts and things I'm seeing onto paper. And then when I sit to write the report, I try to bring it all together, all the pieces of the puzzle, and think about how it fits together. And then I would say that's when I try to be objective. Like I've seen the whole thing now, and when I put it together, it appears that this is the case. There's no sales on the Schedule F from produce grown. There's weeds growing through the trailer. I could go and see what I wrote up and how I documented this for Voc Rehab. I wasn't allowed to see the other site. From my experience, here's the task that I would expect to need to be done to operate that size of a poultry flock and that size of a greenhouse. And there's no possible way one person was doing that by himself. I think that that's my professional observations, and I would write that just that clearly. Does that answer your question, or do you want to ask me another way?
I was referring more to the case notes in general, but I can see how it's really critical to be as objective as we can be when writing this report, which you described.
So being objective and looking at all the information helps us whether we like the person or don't like the person. We all have different personalities, and there's some of our clients that are grumpy and mean. They're having a hard time. And there's other people that are really friendly and want to feed you lunch, and that's great. But I've had the people who want to feed me lunch doing it because they want to get stuff. And I've had grumpy people that really, really needed stuff and were really appreciative of it when they got it. And so that's where what you're saying of being objective, like getting the information, just making the decision is important.
In that case, he might have a case for some assistance from DVR, just not AgrAbility, or from a small business organization in some way, because if he had a Schedule F, he was doing business. He just
Yes,
wasn't doing it in a way where he was producing. So,
correct. He did have a business. He just wasn't doing it. He was a merchant. He still was filing a Schedule F, but he was just buying and reselling the produce. So we could have helped with that aspect of it if there was material handling needs of bringing in crates of produce and washing it and displaying it. Yeah, Lisa.
Could have also helped if he had his business where he was the merchant reselling, but now he was trying to do a little on his own, right?
Right.
It would have been more right with you and said.
Yes,
"Look,
if he had been forthright with me, we could have done lots to help. I'm not lying to you, bud. Okay, so observations, Mary's very strong and capable, always hurrying, no time for ergonomics, keeping every color separate. Here she is, lifting and moving things. She's strong. Strong people hurt themselves, I think, because they can do so much. So, after we are done gathering the information, this is what we talked about. We're being objective. We try to pull together the problems. She's ambitious and willing to sacrifice health for immediate productivity. Her medical condition is degrading due to her work. Business plan is great. She functions well in her context. She's got to be doing a lot of lifting and bending. And so now, oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Her lower back was badly injured, the vertebrae, and surgeries were done to try repairing it, and the surgeries kept failing. The bone wasn't healing, and so she just needed more surgeries to try fixing it. It's kind of ongoing. I'm sorry about that. So, identifying the overarching goals, long-term and short-term goals, thinking through that with her. She wants to make a living producing the honey. She wants to do every aspect of it. She wants to operate the apiary, process the honey, and sell it. She wants to do all of it start to finish. So there's a goals page in the assessment tool for laying this out. We finally got all the information. We've got the goals gathered. Now it's time to make a plan. And so we start pulling together very specific outcome measures with dates for completion, knowing what's the passing grade. How do we know when we've been successful? So her goal is selling honey at public events. The current situation is grandma helps at every event to haul things in. The end result that we want is for her to load 7 55-pound crates of honey, 3 folding tables, a bar stool, tablecloths, and display racks. Haul it to the event, set up the tables, sell the honey independently without lifting the honey crates, and a minimal lifting of the supplies. We want it to happen by July 1st so that she can do 4 events per month. And the passing grade is she still likes grandma around, but grandma can come once a month. And her back condition isn't getting worse because of it. So that's the outcome measure for Mary. Another example in a different context, a different farm would be managing cattle health. The son has to come home and vaccinate calves every week. The outcome measure is that the farmer can sort 20 calves and do the vaccinations alone by May 1st, and he can do it within 2 hours without injuring himself. And the success is when the son just has to help 1 day a month. So these are examples of specific outcome measures that we know. So after we have the goals and all the information gathered, the goals written, the outcome measures, so we know what success is, now we start looking at the different assistive technology options that there are. We can go to the toolbox, we look for high-tech, low-tech, off-the-shelf, custom things, and really try to give the farmer lots of options to think about. Not just pick our thing that we think is right, but by giving the farmers the choice, or the person with a disability in a different context that Song-hee or Kim or Stephanie might work with, we just want the person to have their options in front of them. And we might have our idea what we think is best, but what good does that do? Yeah.
You ever given things to trial? No, that might not be.
Yes. I do trial ideas. Sometimes right away, the first time I'm there, if I kind of know what the situation is, I might take some things along with me. It might be future site visits. It might be advising the farmer to go and try it out at another farm. I've done that. I call another client and say, I have someone that would like to try your ATV and see how they can get on and off of it. Is that okay? And that's a very valuable, extremely valuable aspect of performing trials if possible of different interventions. Calling on other organizations as needed once again, going through the toolbox. The ADA guidelines, farms aren't required to be ADA accessible, but the guidelines are very useful. How steep should a ramp be? And how big of an area do you need in your bathroom? How high do you put railings? Go ahead. If you're doing agritourism, then you fall under the aspect of you're bringing the public in and you need to be accessible to them. But for the farmer themselves, accommodating their own farm, they don't, it's not like there's a law saying they have to, but it gives us good guidelines. So some of the options that I showed to Mary decided to focus on going to the farm markets. There's a bed slide. Basically the floor of a van or a pickup truck can pull out. You can load 1,000 pounds on it. It's great. Roll it back in so that she wouldn't have to lift and reach. It did decrease the cargo space in the vehicle, and you couldn't lean stuff against the wall, and she would always put her tables in and kind of lean them against the side of the van. And she still would have to lift the honey up onto the slide. She just wouldn't have to reach in so far. Low tech, quick, put down a piece of plywood in the back of your van, because you know how a minivan is, the stow and go seats, there's kind of lumps and bumps and soft upholstery. Slide a piece of plywood in there and you can push crates in and out. Just about as good as the bed slide for the price of a piece of plywood. So that's like a temporary improvement. The last option was a cargo trailer that could have a tailgate ramp that comes down, and she'd be able to roll carts up and down. Fill a cart with the produce. I learned this from one of my clients that had a peach orchard, that the peaches would be picked. He would sort them into baskets that were already on the racks. And then he had a winch in the front of the trailer. He could hook onto the rack and it would pull the rack loaded with peaches into the trailer, tie the racks all down, go to market, roll the racks back out, ready for sale. He never handled the peaches again after they were washed and put into the baskets. And so this was another option for her to consider. After showing the options, talking to the AT suppliers about the different features of the AT, we go back and revisit the goals. We moved the one for selling honey at events up to the highest priority because it was the time of year she was at, and that's where the income came from. If she couldn't sell the thousands of dollars of honey that she had already produced last year, how was she going to continue? So we made that, move that up to the highest priority with her. And we got consensus, presented this concept to the rehab counselor, to Mary. She talked about it with her family and I, and the doctors didn't say she couldn't. Okay, so that to her was a green light. She was going to do it anyway. But that enabled us to continue. If the doctors had said, you just, no, you can't, then we would have to accept that as medical advice as professionals. So it looked like a green light, ready to go. So this was the team consensus. We were all on the same page. So now we're ready to go to implementing the plan with the rest of the team. And that's what the next session is going to be about after lunch. I think it's 12:04. There are some more slides on on-site visit safety considerations for us to think about. I talked about that a little bit earlier. I'm not going to go through them in detail. The different tools that I would take along, I always make sure I have a good camera, get permission to take pictures, clipboard for taking notes. I'm going through these quickly. Okay. A fish scale. Josie asked a good question. Why do you take a fish scale with you? You can see how heavy it is to pull open a door or to pull on a lever, how much force it takes for that. The liability that we have, managing our risk. I have professional errors and omissions insurance to cover me. My best liability is doing a good job understanding the risks that there are on the farm and making good recommendations. Document, stay in my professional role, the things that I know to do. And Bill, I don't know if you have any more comments about this liability. There is a safety hierarchy in this booklet to think through of just how to eliminate risks as much as possible. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that today because it's lunchtime. Can I repeat that? She said there is also liability in neglecting to provide a service that someone needs as medical professionals. And so if we are so concerned about liability that we won't provide a necessary service, are we keeping the needs of our clients paramount? I am going to pass out the quiz for this morning's sessions. And we have an hour and a half for lunch. Feel free to just work at it at your leisure. If you don't want to do it right now, we can send you the link at the end of the day tomorrow and you can do all the quizzes together. But I would advise doing it while it's somewhat fresh in your mind. Feel free to ask questions for clarification to me, or Songhi, Kim, I think Stephanie. We'd be happy to help you. There's a box in the back to put your completed quizzes in.